Friends and family, I cannot believe that we have made it back for another riveting episode of Let's Unpack That Beat. So a couple things. First and foremost, that I realized that I haven't been saying, and maybe this is helpful to say. This tempo is 177, and this is in 4/4, and it's in G minor. This is beat 5. It's called Convertible, and I posted this on June 15th of 2024, so just about 2 years ago. And interesting fact, whenever I, 2 years ago, sat down and said, I'm going to start a beats channel and I'm going to try to make a beat every 7 days and post it, and hopefully they won't suck. That's part of it. This was actually the first beat that I made for this project. I ended up posting it 5th, but this was the first one. Another thing that I thought I would point out is that I've kind of gone away from this, but I'm a drummer at heart. When it comes to programming beats versus actually playing beats, it's really fun to sit down and program a beat knowing that there's no physical limitation. You can just program anything and you don't have to play it. And so sometimes you would be like, this syncopation is impossible, or I would have to have a third arm to play this beat or something like that. And it's just fun to sit down with no boundaries. This beat is not one of those impossible beats, but it kind of reminds me of how I used to write and program beats, of just like making something nearly impossible just because it's fun to do. But since then, I've really just focused on feel and groove, and does something make your head bob? Does something feel good? This one just started with a simple groove in 4, and here it is. This is interesting that the hi-hat goes back and forth from like a closed foot hi-hat to someone actually hitting the hat. So not sure why I did that. There's floor tom here. It is panned to the left. Once again, this is in mono, so you won't be able to hear it to the left, but it's got a hard delay on it. That's interesting because it's just one note, but it's like a big slap back. Dun, 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 dun. That's basically all the percussion. A ride comes in later. A second snare comes in later. So a little pad comes in here at the beginning. Pan to the right. Kind of a unconventional rhythm, but familiar chords. That's just kind of the verse feel. I do remember this bass being like almost not a bass. It's very plucky. It's got a but I think it fits well in this groove. There's an accidental in there. C sharp, which is a flat 5. But it leads into that. Kind of cool. I'm a big fan of accidentals. Second snare comes in. Wow. Super roomy sounding. It is interesting because I'm about to post beat 88, and I'm really close to one beat every 7 days. But since I've done that, and since I've made so many beats, I've gotten better at layering, at EQing, at compressing. And when I go back and hear some of these very first beats that I made as part of this project, it makes me happy to see some of the personal growth that I've had. But it's also kind of almost like cute to see some of the stuff that I used to do. I'm just looking at both of these snare drums, and they're not always hitting at the same time, and so I just wonder why I made that decision, like right here. Interesting. Yes, okay, so this is where this hook lead comes in. The other layer in here is a ride cymbal, pan to the right. This kind of reminds me of like just the syncopation and programming things that it's like, if you were a drummer, this would be impressive if you played this. This is just a little interesting tidbit or tip. If you have a groove, adding like one more tiny percussive piece that is very noticeable, that changes the groove quite a bit, even though it's just one more instrument, one more note coming in. And here's what I mean. This is the groove without the ride cymbal. And here it is with it. Coming in on the end of the beat, it just makes it groove differently, and it's interesting how it's just one little instrument and note that is almost unnoticeable in the grand scheme of things. This is really just 11 tracks. 7 of them are percussion, and then bass, lead, keys, and pad. I mean, this is very bare bones, but it kind of gets the job done, so to speak. And this is definitely an example of like less is more in a lot of ways. You don't need tons of layers to make something that sounds full and big. This is just an example of that. But yeah, so the hook happens twice. This is really only 3.5 minutes. A lot of my beats are that long. I don't want to bore people. I kind of always want something to come in. If you're actively listening to it, I want you to be able to tell that certain layers come in and come out. And just taking the percussion out, you can just hear just the instruments of what's happening in the hook here. The drums reinforce all the instruments that are happening. But all in all, I would say this is something that's passable. And one of the things that I'm also really stressing with this project of trying to release a piece of music every 7 days is just like making decisions that last. And not being scared to commit to certain things. Or I used to just make like songs with 30 layers because I was scared of the melodies, and I was like, I don't want anyone to hear this too loud because what if it's not cool? But at a certain point, you just got to go, this is the bass line, this is the lead, and you got to let it sing and mix it accordingly. So that's it. Hopefully this makes you want to go check out beat number 5, Convertible. Thank you again for tuning in to Let's Unpack That Beat. And I'm looking forward to getting closer to some of the new later material. These beats are like 2 years old at this point. But this has been a lot of fun, and hopefully you are enjoying it as well. So I'll play us out with this, and I will catch you guys on the next video.